Welcome back to the Limitless podcast. I'm Anna, and today we are talking about how to actually stop spiraling when we are so deep into it. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is for you if you've ever been in such a deep spiral that you have no way of getting out of it. And most likely you have no idea how to get out of it, right? But you keep finding yourself in these situations. This is the episode for you. So, because you're ambitious and an overachiever, you're actually like a perfectionist at spiraling. Like you have it down pat, right? But if we're also being honest, I think it's time that we conquer this because at the end of the day, it truly is slowing down your success and eating away at your inner peace. And I know because I was you. And so everything that I'm sharing in this episode of how to stop the spiral in real time has come not only from personal experience, but from how I've navigated it with so many other entrepreneurs. So if you are someone who is wondering, how am I ever going to triple my business without tripling my problems if I'm already having such a hard time, not only like logistically managing it, but emotionally managing the pressure and the anxiety? This is how. It's knowing how to stop these spirals as they're in progress. So, a couple spirals that are very familiar with not only myself, but to you are you either spend days, weeks, hours, or hell, even months in one, which makes you feel unproductive and behind, which just causes another spiral because then you're like, oh my God, I've literally done nothing all day, right? Or oh my God, I've done nothing this week, which just catapults into a whole separate spiral. Or you're the type of person who just like minimizes the spiral in its entirety because you think emotions are weak and obstacles to your success. But then the problem there is that you've never actually dealt with the root cause of the spiral and of the problem, which just causes more and more spirals. So if you are someone who's like, why am I constantly self-sabotaging myself? Like, how do I become why am I always my own worst enemy? This is why, because you're never actually addressing the root cause to begin with. Or my favorite one is you wake up with an unexpected expense or an income dip and immediately go into panic mode and start rushing to a quick fix rather than a sustainable solution for the long run and have clarity of mind, right? Because that panic just sets right in. Or my second favorite is going on a vacation, and even though you're in an extremely beautiful place with your loved one, with your friends, we all know that anxiety that is in us every single day on vacation. So we can't be present, we can't enjoy, which makes us feel like we're going to combust, but also we can't talk about it because we're so anxious to begin with that if we start talking about how anxious we are, we're going to come off as annoying. People are going to be like, didn't you sign up for this? Like, this is your job. And then so we just sit in it and it festers and we have no place to put it, right? So the spiral, in my personal experience, and just speaking to so many other high achieving, ambitious entrepreneurs, it's the biggest source of success and inner peace, self sabotage, and setback. Because one, it steals time away from you, but two, it leads to very poor decisions that are quick fixes instead of sustainable solutions that you might not see consequences in the immediate future, but little by little, they're going to compound where in a year, you're going to be like, wait, how did I get here? This isn't the business. This isn't the profit. This isn't what I set out to do this year. So I'm filming this in January, and if you want to actually achieve your goals, if you actually want to triple that business, triple that income, but also like triple your peace of mind, this is where it starts. So oftentimes when I'm talking about like how to balance ambition and inner peace, knowing the source and the root cause of the spiral is where it all starts. So if you have been asking yourself or even feeling this way of that the fact that you feel very bitter sometimes because it seems easier for other people online, right? It seems easier for your competition, for other people when the whole time you've equally been doing all the things, right? I've been there. You're probably there right now, or you have been there, where you've said to yourself, like, I've made the big investments. I've hustled. I've worked really hard. I've implemented all the strategies. And yet you're either not hitting the same level of success or you are hitting that same level of success, and online it looks like you have your shit together, but it doesn't feel sustainable. If we're being honest, it doesn't feel sustainable from a logistics point of view, and it doesn't feel sustainable internally because of the spirals, right? Because every single day it constantly feels like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain, and you're just wondering, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, did I miss the memo? Because everybody's talking about, like, it gets to be easy. It gets to be easy. Well, I've put in my time. I've put in my work. I've made the investments, like we said. And yet I still feel this way. And I keep accomplishing all these things. And it just, when do I actually get to enjoy the fruits of my labor? Because so far, I feel like I've been duped. I feel that like I feel like that lifestyle that I was promised, I have yet to find it, and I'm years into my business. That's how I personally felt last year. Is like, what did I miss a memo, right? So if you are secretly feeling like this, it's shouldn't be a secret because we've all experienced it. This is why. Because while you were so focused on creating a long-term sustainable business in terms of cash flow, strategy, marketing, you're so good at that and it works so well for you. But here's the secret that nobody told me, that I wish somebody told me so I didn't have to figure it out by myself. That while you created a sustainable business, you forgot that you forgot to create a sustainable business in terms of for you as a human, because you just were simply never taught the tools to manage yourself, and you figured out very quickly how to manage your business in terms of strategy. But now that's starting to bite you in the butt. I know it definitely bit me in the butt last year, right? Because at the core root of it, and when you're really masculine and you're really strategy focused and you're very much of like, I'm going to bulldoze my way through any situations, what you don't realize is that navigating building a business while living a very full life doesn't one day get to be easy. Like everybody says it is, like, oh, it gets to be so easy. No, it actually doesn't get to be easy. Because when you increase your capacity to hold bigger success, you're going to have to increase your capacity to hold bigger challenges. And that's just very logical that as you triple and as you scale, you're going to be faced with bigger challenges, right? So, what I'm saying is that it doesn't get to be easy, but when you do increase your success and you increase those challenges, plus you have the tools to manage them effectively, the pressure gets to feel easier versus eating away at you. And that's the secret to scaling without the spirals and scaling with while balancing ambition with inner peace. That's actually the solution. That's actually the secret that like nobody tells you, is knowing how to hold both of those together at the same capacity is how you're going to achieve that peace of mind, that profit, that purpose, everything that you actually want. That's actually the secret to it. So if you're wondering like, how do I triple my business without tripling my problems, it's knowing actually how to manage those problems effectively. And I don't just mean logistically, because that you can figure out no problem, like you're smart, but it's how can you figure out how to manage yourself to that capacity, your spirals, your decisions, right? That nervous system. How do you keep clarity in the chaos when you have issues like somebody sends you a cease and desist, or somebody is suing you for $1 million when you have a $10 million business? Like, those things are not just going to magically get easy. You actively have to work on training your brain and training your mind and your body to have the toolkit, to have the strategies to physically be able to handle that mentally and emotionally. And I'm telling you from experience, it's not as a matter of if or when, but you will capsize and things will come crashing around you if you don't actually know how to handle this and have that toolkit before you get there. So when you know how to cut your spiral time in half and you know how to move through these emotions and neutralize them and process them, not avoid them. I want to be very clear about them. It's not about avoiding emotions. It's not about attaching and not feeling emotions. It's about knowing how to cut through them because you know how to process them and you know how to neutralize the stories around them in a very healthy way. So when you know how to master the spirals, like we'll be talking about today, about my 4-step framework, about how this has completely changed my life, changed my business, changed my inner peace. It's the reason I was able to move to France when I got my eviction notice. when you know how to actually master your emotions, neutralize the story, four things start happening, and they start happening really quickly. One, you start knowing exactly how to cut your spirals in half because you're able to cut down to the root cause of it very quickly. And when you know how to be aware and cut that time down, you start being in control. And I know you love being in control, right? And spirals are bad because they make you feel like you're not in control. So this is how you get back in control. So you're no longer wasting time and you're not feeling like you're on an emotional roller coaster because you know how to actually get off it for good this time. Two, you start learning how to find clarity in the chaos in very chaotic situations, right? Like what happens when you do have that income dip? What happens when you do get served those legal papers, right? Like you have to start knowing how to think like that high level version of yourself who is a seven figure, who is an eight figure, who has a lot of responsibility and a lot of really big challenges on their shoulders, right? So, when we have clarity in very chaotic situations and we know how to eliminate that story that's eating away at you, right? And we all know the story, right? When we have an income dip, oh my God, nobody's going to buy from me. Oh my God, my business is over. Oh my God, how am I going to pay bills? When realistically, like none of those things are true, right? But we all have those stories that completely eat away at us. When we neutralize those stories and those things just don't mean anything, we start feeling confident to make intentional decisions that are rooted in sustainable solutions, right? So no more quick fixes because our nervous system feels activated and we're just looking for safety. When we're in really tough challenges, we start making very intentional decisions. And that is the 7, 8 figure version of you that needs to be activated and needs to be practiced. Three, because you know how to be aware and because you know how to neutralize that story, you start becoming a decision sorting machine in real time. Because all of a sudden, when you're in the situations, you start knowing how to sort scarcity versus intuitive thoughts. And that's when you start making better decisions that are going to compound for real results in the long run, thus tripling your success without tripling your problems. So, and number four, which is my favorite, is you no longer feel like you're at the mercy of your emotions, right? When we're in these spirals, we're like, well, whenever it decides to leave my body is when it leaves my body. Nope. You're going to reclaim your success and restore your inner peace because you're actually going to be in control again, right? You're going to be in control because you're no longer at the mercy. You know how to get off the ride. So, a question I had to ask myself last year, and I ask myself and my clients all the times now when they are like, yeah, well, I'm doing all the things. When am I going to get to that level? Like, how much more is it going to take? So, one, it's going to take you actually knowing how to work through the spirals. Number one. But two, I want to ask this question and I want you to be very honest with yourself. You want to triple your business. Okay. But today, and I'm not talking logistics or income or any of that. I'm just simply asking the you today, do you have the emotional and mental capacity to triple your business without tripling your problems today? Like if we take a look at the recent decisions you make while you were in a spiral, you were paralyzed, how much time you wasted, do you think that the way you handle spirals, the way you handle your emotions, your reactions today, do you think that version of you is capable of tripling your business without tripling your problems? Because you could definitely get there, but do you think that if you got there today, do you think it would be sustainable? Or do you think you would not be able to emotionally handle it because it would just eat away at you to the point where it would just come crashing down? I don't want you to come crashing down. I want you to find that balance between ambition and inner peace. You get to have a wildly crazy big business and you get to wake up in the morning and not feel like you're so anxious that you gag while brushing your teeth. I don't know if that's TMI, but that's literally what happened to me all last year. Like when I get into like a spiral or when like my stomach, we all know like that stomach feeling when you're anxious. I'm just like constantly gagging 24/7. And I've had so many clients say the same exact thing to me. So I feel like we're all having the same experiences, but you get to be happy. You get to enjoy the fruits of your labor and you get to have an incredibly successful business. I'm a walking embodiment that you get to have both. And all it's going to take is for you to change your perception about what doing this kind of work looks like and actually being very intentional and prioritizing it. And there is a very strategic way that I figured out how to do it that I'm going to share with you today. But I want you to keep an open mind as to what to actually prioritize in your business to actually get to where you want to be going in a way that actually feels good and not like you're having to bulldoze every single day of your life, because that's not normal. And to be quite honest, that's not cute. You're not going to get an award or a medal because you like bulldoze the most, because you had the most anxiety. Nobody's going to award you a medal for that, okay? So when we talk about the impacts of spiraling, not only for your success, your profits, your inner peace, your personal life, like I said, I didn't see the results, I didn't see the impacts right away, but 3 years into business, it compounded and then it started having long term effects. So, when I talk about real tangible consequences in business, like I said before, spirals not only take away your time, and as we know, time is finite. You cannot buy it, you cannot borrow it. Elon Musk himself cannot create more of it. It is finite. Okay. But where the long term effects start coming from is that it causes you to make decisions based in fear and ego and scarcity, which always result in quick fixes and never sustainable solutions. So, our nervous systems, when we get activated like that, we can't think clearly, we can't see clearly, we can't hear clearly, right? That gagging starts coming up. But it's because we want to feel safe, right? Like our body wants to feel safe. So, what we do, and what I've definitely done in the past, is we start reaching for anything that feels safe to us, right? Just for immediate relief. So when we're not thinking clearly, those, quick solutions might look like quickly creating an offer that's not actually in line with our goals, or wasting a couple weeks working on a project that is actually not going to get us anywhere, right? Or changing our messaging or changing our prices or doing something just as reaction instead of actually thinking about like, what is the situation, what is a sustainable solution here so it doesn't bite me in the ass 6 months to a year from now, right? Like that's ultimately like the two things we want to be focused on, is like, how are we not wasting time, not just in business, but like in our personal life? Because I know when I'm spiraling, it affects everybody around me. It affects Norman. I don't want to go on walks with him. It affects your personal life. It affects your kids. It affects your partners. It affects your family. It affects your friends. Like, once again, like you get to enjoy life, and you get to not be at the mercy of these emotional roller coasters. And that's what I really want for you. So if we go back to that question of like, how do we triple our business without, tripling our problems? It's really dependent on this, right? How are we making decisions? How are we making decisions that are not going to bite us in the ass and actually get us to where we're going in a way that's very fulfilled, peaceful, but also extremely ambitious, right? We want to do things that we want to do in the way we want to do them, and we don't want to feel like shit when we get there. So, and I say this to you because I think, like, as someone who is like a recovering perfectionist and recovering like masculine, and I've really spent this last year finding that sweet spot by balancing ambition with inner peace, because you do get to have both, is that I used to believe that I had this core belief that emotions truly were just obstacles, right? And that comes from the way I was raised. It comes from being an immigrant, trying to make it here. It comes from, living in New York City, working corporate. It just comes from everything that we've been taught, the way we've been talked to, we've been raised. But I truly thought that emotions like slowed down my success. And I really prided myself and like my ego on like, well, I can bulldoze through any situations and I don't care because I'm above this, right? Like I'm not going to let these silly little things like emotions slow me down. Which is ironic, because what I realize now is it doesn't it's not that emotions slow you down. It's just that emotions are actually a GPS system. And when you don't know how to read your GPS system, it's trying to reroute you, and that's what is continuing the spiral. But when you know how to process and neutralize and actually use your emotions to your advantage, that's when you get to places quicker, and it actually feels like 10 times better. Trust me. So I look at it as like your nervous system or your emotions, like they're actively trying to tell you something, but you're just not listening to them because you think you know best. Your ego thinks it knows best and it doesn't, right? So if like I'm traveling with someone and we don't know where we're going, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, let's not use Google Maps. Let's just like wing it and see where we end up." I'd be like, "Excuse me?" Um, no, that's not no, like that's not how this is going to work. I'm not going to get lost just because like you think you know best when you don't, right? So, it's really about knowing how to read that Google Maps GPS system, right? And the reason why you can't get out of that spiral is because it's trying to reroute you. And I think when you're very masculine, high achieving in business, like we all are, I think we just think that it's normal to feel this anxious, to feel this much pressure. And I think at like some sort of level, we just kind of accept it because we're like, well, this is what we signed up for, right? Like nobody told us that we had to like create a business. We wanted to do it. So I feel like we just think that there's no way out of it. So we don't even look for a solution, right? But at the same time, I know in my experience, when I thought I was like trapped in this like anxiety and pressure and spiral, I also wasn't seeing anybody like me who was super ambitious, who was super masculine, like talking about not only this, but actively talking about how to like push through resistance in a very in a very tactical way. So I could be more productive and I didn't feel like the world was going to end every day, right? Because all I saw online, all the messaging I saw was about affirmations and energy. And that just like really pissed me off, right? So I never learned the tools to actually manage myself as a priority as part of my strategy in business because one, I just didn't see anybody talking about it. I wasn't aware of it like I am now. And I thought strategy was all I needed. But when you only put in 50% of the work needed to get somewhere and you don't even realize you're missing 50%, right? Like what can you do about it? So at a certain point, I just had to ask myself, like, I don't think it's cute to be riddled with anxiety 24/7. I just don't think like feeling this pressure, one, is normal. And also, I'm just like really tired of feeling like I have to bulldoze my way and force myself to do things just like to achieve something. But then when I do achieve it, it doesn't even feel good. And then it feels like never enough because by the time I get there, I'm burnt out. So no matter what I do, I just can't seem to find fulfillment and happiness. And even like the dopamine highs that I get from accomplishing something, like a launch, it just never lasts. So, like, at what point do I get to enjoy my achievements? At what point do I get to enjoy my life? Because I've made the money, I've hit the milestones, I've done all the things I've wanted to do, and yet it doesn't feel good. So, something has to be up, right? And I want you to know it's not normal. Like, you do get to enjoy your accomplishments. You do get to wake up every day and not feel like you're going to die. Okay. So now let's get into like, okay, but like, what do I actually do about this? So, me being the very strategy framework person that I am, I love taking taking mindset and spirituality and actually making it very practical and action oriented. So I have created 4 steps to stopping the spiral in a very practical way. Now, this is a framework that you have to practice as the spiral is happening. And the more you practice it, the faster your response time will be. So, this is something that took me like over a year to really master, but I'm telling you, this will be the thing that changes your business, your profits, your inner peace, because the faster you can get out of a spiral, the faster you can get on with your life, the faster you can be happy, and the faster you can be more successful. And it's truly the reason I was able to make the decision to move to France. Because let me tell you, when I got that letter after my pipes burst that I need to like evacuate my apartment, I was able to only spiral for 4 hours and then make the decision to move to France because I spent the last year really putting this framework into practice. In the past, old me would have spent days, weeks spiraling, be like, oh my God, my life is over. What am I going to do now? I need to find another apartment. When in actuality, this was divine timing and truly the perfect time to intentionally make the move to France, because that is where just like the next chapter of my growth and my life is taking me. So let's talk about the actual 4 steps. So, number 1 is becoming aware of the spiral root cause and your need for urgency. Now, I always thought I was a very self aware person. And while I'm sure you do think, well, I'm sure you also think that of yourself, if you knew the root cause of actually what's going on, you wouldn't be in your spiral in the first place. So, I had to kind of realize that, like, while I'm very self-aware, I didn't have internal awareness, meaning I wasn't actually tuned to myself and what was actually going on inside of me. So when we're talking about recognizing your spiral, we're talking about like asking what is actually happening right now. What is happening? Not what is the story that you're telling yourself, but what is actually realistically in real time happening, right? So for example, let's take the spiral of income dips, right? You being triggered by that. I know from now 99% of the time, when you are triggered by an income dip, when you are triggered by money, it is because subconsciously your self-worth is tied to a virtual number in your bank account, which is like a whole separate podcast episode. But when you are triggered by money, by that income dip, right, by nobody buying, by it being a week and nobody has bought your new offer, instead of immediately going into the story of, oh my God, like, oh my God, nobody's gonna buy from me. I'm gonna not be able to pay my bills this month. Oh my God, what if nobody buys from me ever again? Right? We like catastrophize these stories in our heads. Instead of doing that, let's just take a step back and being like, okay, what is actually going on right here? Okay, well, I'm being triggered because I'm gonna make less than I didn't made last month. Nobody has bought from me in a week. Okay, that is legitimately what is going on right now. Nothing more, nothing less, right? Now, when it comes to actually making a decision out of this, you probably are going to feel a lot of urgency to make a decision, right? So then it becomes decision making from an ego versus intuition point of view. So actually acknowledge your need for urgency. Okay, I'm being triggered right now. This is the root cause of the spiral. It's not that nobody's going to buy from me ever again. It's my why am I so triggered every single time a number is presented in front of me, right? Why is my self-worth tied to this number? Why does my demeanor change every single time I'm having a bad sales week or sales month? Why is it that my partner can literally tell when I'm not making as much money because my personality is completely different, because it completely puts me in a bad mood? Why is my day-to-day reality so changed and affected by this, right? So instead of immediately going into well, I have to cancel this subscription, or I have to like change the price on my offer, I have to change the messaging, actually take a step back and be like, okay, those are decisions I am going to make from ego and scarcity, because ego and scarcity is always loud and is always urgent. But if I take a step back, what is my intuition and what is my gut actually telling me to do? So for me, for example, when I was served that letter, I spiraled for 4 hours because you're human. I hate to break it to you, but you can like say that emotions don't belong in business and like, you're so above that, but you're human. So you're allowed to spiral. I'm not going to promise you you're never going to spiral again, because you are human and that is par for the course and you run a business. But I am telling you that when you do spiral and you have these tools, you're going to be able to conquer and get out of it a lot faster, right? So when I was going through the process of sorting my decisions between ego and intuition during that spiral, I said, okay, my ego is telling me that I should start looking for other apartments, start, selling more so I can have more money to, so I can have more to put down for a deposit. But then on the other hand, from my intuitive gut point of view, do I actually want to get another apartment right now? And this was like in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, so literally the worst time. Do I actually want to like move all my stuff right now? What do I actually want? Like, what is my higher self telling me to do? And after I went on a walk and I talked it out with myself, it became very clear to me and it became loud as day that France was the answer, right? So, once again, this is going to take practice, this is going to take time, but the more you start thinking like this and acknowledging this during the spirals, I promise you, the more clarity you are going to have in decision making and the more confidence you will have in that decision making, right? So when you're triggered by that income scenario, what is my ego telling me to do versus what do I actually want to do? Regardless of any outside circumstances, what do I actually want to do in this moment, right? So that is number one. It's recognizing the root cause of the spiral and really asking why so you can sort through ego and intuition in your decision making. So now that we're aware, how do we actually get out of the spiral, right? Okay, we're aware of our spiral. We are aware of the decisions that are in front of us, right? So how do I get out of the spiral quickly, right? Well, now it comes time to neutralize the emotions and eliminate the story you're telling yourself so you can make clear and intentional, sustainable decisions for the long run. So when I say neutralize emotions, I don't mean detach from them, don't feel them. No, that is the wrong thing to do. I'm talking about now that we are aware, how do we in a healthy way process the emotions so we can neutralize the story we're telling ourselves and eliminate it. So when I say neutralize, what I'm talking about is how do I make the story not mean anything? So for example, when we were talking about the income example, right? All of these like catastrophized stories started coming into your head about like what it actually means when it doesn't mean anything at all. So when you have an income dip or a client gives you bad feedback, right? Or nobody is buying from you, what is actually going on versus the story? But what if that story doesn't exist in the first place, right? So if you went throughout your day making decisions, throughout the month, things are happening in your business. If you just eliminated all those stories that are keeping you from making sustainable, intentional decisions rooted in your intuition, nothing would mean anything. You would just continue doing whatever the hell you want to do and feeling really good about it, right? Because there would be no ego or no story telling you, like, oh, that's not a good decision. Oh, I don't know. But what if you don't make any more money? What if nobody wants to work with you anymore, right? If you don't have those voices in your head, if you don't have that story self sabotaging you, well, then you're not going to self sabotage, right? So, truly at that level of like 7 8 figures, when you're dealing with like these super big challenges, it's all about neutralizing emotions. It's all about neutralizing emotions, right? So the way we do that is we have to detach eventually from the emotions and eliminate that story. But the way we do that is not by just being like, okay, well, I'm just not going to feel this, right? Or my favorite is like when you're a perfectionist and people are like, well, just like stop being a perfectionist. Just like post the thing. And you're like, gee whiz, why didn't I think of that? Thanks. That help was so helpful, right? Or like if you're like an addict, people being like, well, just don't drink. Just don't drink. Gee, why didn't I think of that? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Like, so when we're talking about detaching our emotions, that's neutralizing the story. And the way you get really good at neutralizing stories really fast is if we go back to decision making from ego versus intuition. Well, the way I see it is you learn how to become a decision sorting machine. And once again, this is something you have to practice. The more you practice, the faster this gets. But like, I'm to the point where, like, with the France decision, I'm to the point where, like, subconsciously, I don't even have to think about it, but I just subconsciously like have sorted my thoughts and decisions into ego intuitive. So when you can become super aware, when you can like eliminate that urgency and neutralize that emotion, all of a sudden you have clarity in the chaos and you can sort ego versus intuitive and have a very clear understanding of what is actually in alignment with what your goal is and the decision that is going to take you there in very chaotic situations. And so then number 4 becomes actually integrating the intuition with your strategy to be aligned with actions and goals to actually take you to where you want to go, that final destination. So if that goal is 7-8 figures, if it's a book deal, if it's finally creating that passive product, whatever it is, when you have those spirals that take you down, it's utilizing these steps to actually neutralize, sort, and then be like, okay, now in this very chaotic situation, I have a very clear understanding of what I want to do and where I want to go. How do I now tangibly, now we're coming from like the mindset into the actual strategy. Now that I'm very clear about what is going on here and what do I want to do about it, how do I actually integrate that with the strategy, right? And that is where you start seeing very tangible tactical results, right? So that is the balance of the ambition and the inner peace of like, how do I navigate having a lot of intentional clarity as to what I want to be doing, and how can I tangibly integrate that into my strategy so I don't burn out and see faster results, but with less resistance and feel more fulfilled. Because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with so many clients of like, we get to the finish line of whatever goal we have, right? Whether that is like going viral or hitting 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, having a 6-figure launch, right? Like all these things, but then we get there and we're burned out. And we did it in a way that was not fulfilling. So even though we're checking all of these milestone boxes off, like they just never end up feeling good. And so that just perpetuates the spiral of never enoughness, right? This is how we bypass that. This is how we once and for all eliminate that, because we're not only going to get to our destination, but we're going to get there in a way that feels really good and we don't have to sacrifice anything. Okay. So if we go back to that question of right now, am I able to triple my business without tripling my problems? Ask yourself once again, do I actively have the tools and the capacity mentally and emotionally to be able to sustain tripling right now without tripling my problems? And if the answer to that is no, and you're like, I am so tired of these spirals, I am so tired of constantly feeling out of control, and I want to feel in control, and I want to get back my time, I want to be really good at decision making and not have something else have control over me, this is where that starts. And so, because this is truly the root of everything, I can give you a strategy for content, for marketing, for sales, for whatever. But if you physically cannot control your spirals within all of those categories, then it's not going to mean anything. At a certain point, the strategy doesn't mean anything because you can't even fully implement it without feeling like this. So, because this is the root cause of everything, I am so excited to work with you on this because I've created a Stop the Spiral 4-week group coaching program inside of the Balance Entrepreneur membership. $97 for a live group coaching program. Normally, group coaching programs are 4-figure investments. This is $97 to work with me on this. It is 4 weeks to reset, realign, revitalize your ambition and inner peace inside of the memberships, where we're going to be each week working through each one of these steps with you so you see tangible results in the next 28 days. So what this is going to look like is weekly calls with me for not only personalized feedback, but you're going to have 28 days of actionable 5-minute prompts that you can do in the morning that build on top of each other every single day and every single week. So by the time you hit day 28, you will have the framework to conquer these spirals and you will see real results. And on top of everything, you also will have access to a community and to me where during the week, as you're working through the problems, you will have access to ask me questions. So live 4 weeks to stop the spiral with me. Okay. Now, I've said this before, but like I said, I'm not going to promise you're never going to spiral again. You are a human. You're a business owner. It's par for the course. Comes with the territory. But As a recovering perfectionist, as somebody who is incredibly strategy orientated, I can promise you, but that by the end of the 4 weeks, you'll have the tools to at least start to conquer that next spiral and reclaim your success, reclaim your control of your business, of your life, and restore your inner peace. So I want you to ask yourself, what would my life and my business look like if I intentionally took the next 28 days, 4 weeks, just 4 weeks, an hour a week, and then 5 minutes in the morning, okay, to intentionally work on cutting my spirals in half? How would that affect your business? How would that affect your profits? How would that affect your peace in your personal life? Think about it. How much more in control and confident would you feel knowing that you can get off that emotional roller coaster whenever you want to? You're not at the mercy of it anymore, right? How good would it feel knowing that you get to triple your business and you feel confident that you're going to be able to sustain it? That is the reality. I'm not promising you it gets to be easy, but it does get to feel easier. And this is how you're going to do it. And I'm going to be there with you, showing you how to do it because I've done it. Okay. So 4 weeks with me inside of the Balanced Entrepreneur membership. If you want to cancel after the 4 weeks, be my guest. That's totally fine. But $97, we start February 15th. We're going to meet every single week for 4 weeks. And then every single day, you're going to have the 5-minute prompts. And every day, if you want feedback on how you answered the prompts or anything you experienced during the day, feel free to contact me. I'm going to be there with you. Okay. Link is in the show notes. I'm so excited to work with you on this. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message on Instagram. I'm so excited to see you in there.